I just finished the book today. I have mentioned it in my summer reads because I'm a huge Jodi Piccoult fan. And this was a book I just completed. I am reading like 3 books right now, but this was one I just finished today. And sorry, there's a price tag still on the cover. I'm going to take that off so you can see what the book looks like. But I just wanted to give you kind of a brief review. If you want to comment, sort of make it like a book club, or if you've read this book and you also have a different take on it, let me know. I'd love to hear it. The book that I'm going to be reviewing is called The Change of Heart, and it is by Jodi Piccoult. It's a really good book. I've read a lot of Jodi Piccoult's books. This is the back. That's the author. That's her. I've read a lot of her books. I really enjoy her books a lot. I think the first book I read, I believe everyone has read it, is My Sister's Keeper. Definitely was very touching for me. I did cry during that book. I know that's cheesy, but I really did enjoy it. I read 19 Minutes, which is also excellent by her. They're definitely page turners, I would say, that she writes, and she always has kind of a twist on the end of her books, and that's something I really like. So in this book, I will go over some of the characters and then give you what I thought about the book. So first off, the characters, the first character I'll mention is June. June is one of the main characters. So the way she writes this book is she titles the chapters based off of the character's name. So one chapter will have the title June, and then it'll have another character's name, and you get their perspective on the story, which is pretty neat to do that. I do like getting different perspectives on stories because then you can kind of judge how the story goes, because you're judging it based off of what the character's thoughts are, as opposed to being in the same person. So June is the mother of the daughter who was murdered in this book. So there was a daughter that was murdered, and then there's another little girl that she has who is suffering from a really bad heart condition and actually needs a heart transplant. June is also someone who suffers the death of her husband. So her husband was murdered and her daughter was murdered. So she's going through a lot in this book. Definitely emotions are all over, and she's a pretty good main character. She's a little bit on the boring side, but a fairly good character. Michael is the second character I'll mention, and he is the priest in the book. So Michael, Father Michael is his name in the book. He's a Catholic priest, and I stress Catholic, and I'll mention that why later. He is Shay Bourne's priest, and Shay Bourne is the main character. So he is actually the prisoner in this book. He's one of the jurors in the beginning of the book. So when Shay Bourne is first introduced to us in the book, he is in a murder trial, and this priest is actually one of the jurors on the case. He's a very compassionate, obviously, priest. He's got his heart in the right place for Shay Bourne, who's the main character, and it's interesting to read it through his eyes, especially since there's a lot of references to the Bible with the character, which I think is very neat to bring references from the Bible, but it's not too religious if you're someone who's not religious. Shay Bourne is the main character. Shay Bourne is actually a prisoner, and they start off the book with him being in a jury on a case, and then he's sentenced to death row for his murders. He is someone who is a very torn character. You really start to feel for this guy. You feel very sad for him. You're heartbroken for him pretty much throughout the book. He has really great intentions. He wants to donate his heart to the little girl. So June has that daughter who has a heart condition. Shay actually wants to donate his heart. He feels very strongly in the book that he needs to donate his heart to this little girl for her to live her life. But also in the book, he's the murderer. So June hates Shay Bourne because he murdered her husband and her other daughter. So there's a real twist on the story, and you're torn with it. But as the story develops, you'll actually start taking Shay's side. I don't want to tell you because I don't want to ruin it in the book, but you will actually be angry with him, and then you'll change over and you'll feel sorry for him. He's a really great character. He's very, you're getting a viewpoint from a prisoner. He's in a prison cell, so you're getting some of the evil kind of things that prisoners do to each other. What's neat is he does perform what they call kind of miracles in the book. He has a piece of bazooka gum, and somehow all of the inmates can actually taste the bazooka gum. It's incredible. He does perform some acts like Jesus Christ might have done in a new kind of way for our day. It's interesting. The water in the prison cells turns into wine, or at least, it tastes like wine. So he does perform some kind of miracles. There is another prisoner who has a dead bird, and Shayborn actually brings it to life. So it's kind of interesting to hear that and kind of get that twist. He doesn't ever actually say that he is Jesus Christ, but during the book, a lot of the priest kind of mentions that maybe he is the modern day Messiah and things like that. But it's not very religious, this book. But if you have a Catholic background, or you are someone who's into religion, you can kind of see the similarities, and it's really kind of neat how Jodi does this in the book. Another great thing about Jodi Piccoult is she definitely does her research when she writes books. So if she's writing a book about a trial or about a certain illness, she does have one book about a little girl who has an illness, and I know I'm sidetracking, but she does a great job of actually doing references to it. So if she uses medical terminology, she actually looks the terms up, they make sense, and everything she writes about, really truly, she does her research when she writes it, which is great. Also, the other character I'll mention is Maggie. Maggie is actually a lawyer, and Maggie's from a Jewish background. Her dad is actually a rabbi, so you can see how she throws the Catholic with the Jewish and the different ways of looking at death, because Shayborn is actually facing death. So you can get the different perspectives. Now, Maggie is I believe, an early 30s or late 20s lawyer who's dedicated her life primarily to her career. So she doesn't have a husband, she doesn't have kids, and she's a little bit torn. She has a pet rabbit that's like her, favorite, who she turns to. She's a little on the overweight side, and so she doesn't really look to date. But she does actually start having a lot of compassionate feelings towards Shayborn, and she mainly becomes his lawyer because Shay is facing the death sentence, and he doesn't fight that he's facing it. It's just that he wants to donate his heart. And now when they do lethal injection, obviously it stops the heart and it kills them. So the only way to bypass that is if he gets hung. So that way when they hang him, they can intubate him and take his heart and salvage it for an organ transplant. So that's a huge controversy, because they're saying, well, it's a death sentence, how can you save his heart if it's a death sentence? And then, hanging him is just not the way we go in this place. So there's a lot of back and forth bantering, and Maggie during this part, she kind of develops as a person. She actually meets someone, falls in love with them, and then she learns who she is, really, because you can tell she's kind of battling religion at this time, and battling, organ donation. So there's a lot of things that get covered at this time, which is really neat. Lucius is another character. He's more in the beginning and the middle of the book. Towards the end, they fade him out a little bit. So Lucius is actually the neighbor of Shayborn in the prison cell. And Lucius is the one who experiences Shayborn initially. So you can see things through him. Lucius is a gay man, and he is, I believe, put into jail because he murdered his partner. And he is torn by this. I mean, he is suffering from AIDS, so he has like the sores in his mouth, and just has all these things going on. He's also an artist, and he hides his palette in the wall, and he paints pictures, and he's very deep, he's very artistic, but he loves Shay. He really feels for Shay, and kind of actually goes on Shay's side, and it's interesting to see it through a prisoner's eyes. Shay has a couple of things happen to him in prison, and I don't want to ruin all these things for you, but there's some things that happen in the prison to Shay, and Lucius is there, and you hear it from his perspective. So he's a really interesting character also. And those are the main characters in the book. There's, a couple of others, like Maggie's parents are in there. They talk about some of the wardens and the judge and things like that, but those are the main characters. So the way Jodi Piccoult writes the book is each chapter has each of the characters, and you get a different perspective. So you get the mom who is a sick child, but at the same time, the man who's trying to donate the heart is the murderer of her husband and her other daughter. So there's a lot of mixed emotions in this book. I'm a huge Jodi Piccoult fan, but overall, I'm actually going to give it like a mixed thumbs up, thumbs down. I wasn't a page turner for me, to be honest with you, which I was surprised. Most of the time with Jodi Piccoult books, I definitely find it to be a huge page turner, but overall in this book, I didn't get that sense. So go out and get it, or get it from the library, but I can't promise you that it's going to be a total page turner. If you have comments, or you'd like to put your own review of this book, that'd be great. Just link it down to the bottom. If you have any questions, let me know. If you think having this book club / book review thing is a great idea, let me know that also. And I hope to let you guys know about more books that I'll read this summer. Bye.